Hi guys, welcome to this week's Urban Uncut, and this week we are doing something a little bit different. We're not including this guy.
I'm busy anyway.
Well, no, you're not included, so it doesn't matter whether you're busy or not.
Anyway.
And what we're doing, we're going over to our carbon factory with Chris, manufacturing director.
Hiya.
And we're going to give you a little insight about the entire process from beginning to end, from a roll of carbon all the way to a finished lacquered part. Right guys, so welcome to Road. This is where we house our manufacturing facility for just carbon fibre. I'm going to give you a run through from the process from the beginning to end, and that's going to start with all the way from a pattern through to a mould, through to a part, through to trimming and through to finishing. I'm going to get Chris, our manufacturing director, to go through it with me because he's much more technical than me. I follow off the sales side and a brief overview of technicalities, but he's the man when it comes to knowing the inner details of exactly what we do. In a manufacturing facility, what are we, 13,000 square feet? What is it about?
Yeah, collectively 12 to 14,000 square feet.
Which is obviously, what did you start in all those years ago?
A farm in a little shed. Yeah, about 500-600 square feet.
600,
yeah.
Not even thousands?
No, just hundreds.
I remember the first unit that I came to before we went into business together, and I think it was one small room, and you'd built a room on top of a room.
Oh yeah. We built. We put a spray booth upstairs as well, so that we could spray on site, and we just kept going up. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, obviously we've come a long way since then. We'll give everyone a tour in a moment, but this is where it starts. So
yeah. So when I did start within this was like probably 13, 14 years ago.
But you didn't do this, did you?
Didn't do this. So this is obviously what I heard about. It was all done in F1. It's the right way. It's accurate.
Yeah.
It takes the manual skill factor out of it with your hands,
but removes some of the manual error, I guess.
Yeah. And obviously it's very CAD design orientated. So
we've actually got an original. We've got the first mould that we ever did, which was done by hand. So we can show people comparison to this.
Yeah.
When we go upstairs afterwards, we'll show you that mould. But if you explain what this to this to this.
Yeah, okay.
Does.
So what we've got is the G63 bull nose bonnet vent.
Yeah.
Pattern, mould, and a component. So a nearly finished part. So this is made out of epoxy block. It's machined on a 5-axis machine once it's been designed in CAD.
So on this, this is the reverse of the part, isn't it?
Well, that's actually a master pattern. So that's the same as what it would be as you see on the car.
On the car,
which is the same as that.
Gotcha.
So what you actually look at, you're going to put carbon material onto that to make a carbon mould.
Which is the reverse of this.
Which is this. So basically, this is taken off of that
to make that.
Yeah. So material go on there, 9 layers by hand. Then it gets cured through the autoclave.
So why do you put 9 layers on?
Just to give it the rigidity it needs.
So it doesn't warp and stuff like that.
When you've got the geometry in a part like this, where you've got all this shape, obviously that gives it
the substance. It's never going to move.
No, it's not going to move. Once it's cured, it's done. So that's done by hand, goes through the autoclave process, which we'll talk about in a bit. That comes off, and that's then surplus to requirements. That's redundant.
So we don't throw that away though?
No, that's our insurance policy.
So basically, the reason we keep this is if anything ever goes wrong with this part, we can remake a tool.
Or if like a popular product like the Defender light bar, where we want to make a duplicate mould,
we'll make multiple moulds.
Then we can up production to keep up with demand. So this is now our production tool. So it is made out of carbon fibre, just slightly different resin system to what we use to make the part.
Gotcha.
That's trimmed, it's then sealed and released so that when you make a part of it, it doesn't stick to it. So again, you're then laminating material onto the mould. It goes through the autoclave, and this is what you pop off and you've got your part.
So basically this looks exactly the same as the master was in the beginning. So
male, female, male.
Gotcha. So explain, what's these little little line just here?
So
What's this witness line?
That's the trim detail that you need to pick up, so that we've got that to start with, so that we can trim the excess material off of the part, so that we take it back down to that.
That shows on the part, so so the trim team know exactly where to
that's
to
it.
do it to,
and on this particular product, it didn't need adjusting after we've made the first one. It was right in CAD.
Right, okay.
Well done, Damien.
Yeah.
And if you wondering why we need this excess material, because when that's on there, sometimes these parts are difficult to get out of the mould, so you need to use wedges and tools.
If we don't have the excess material, we might damage it on the
you'll be putting wedges and tools onto the job and then probably causing damage. Then it ends up being a scrap and going in the bin. So that part is now ready to be trimmed by the trim shop, back to where it needs to be. Open all the vents in here. Go back to this line.
So we've even got like trim detail in there to open up all of the vents so you can actually see down them. So I mean, as you can see, guys, this is like just a raw part, and you've seen what it looks like on our G-Wagon, obviously fully glossed and finished. So this is part of the process. My version of it is it starts with lamination, but it doesn't, does it? Because it starts with the material that all these components are made from. So this is pre-preg carbon, the best of the best. Pre-preg means it's impregnated with resin. So rather than a bucket and a brush, you've basically got the combination. So the bucket and the brush was basically the old-fashioned way, and then they've invented something which has got it inside the carbon.
It's processed so that it's kind of saturated in it.
Right, okay.
And then when it hits a certain cure temperature, this will start to go off and start to run.
This is kind of like gone hot. Do we have to keep this like this? It goes in the fridge, doesn't it?
Yeah, so it's got an out life. So because it does go off, when that's at a room temperature, it's only got an out life of say 30 to 40 days. So keep it in a freezer.
So it's not like you get it out of the freezer and suddenly the next day it will be useless.
No, right. But you've got that to work with, and it's okay in the freezer for say 12 to 18 months. So if you want, we'll have a look in the freezer.
Let's go.
You'll literally go.
This is where we keep staff when they're bad.
Yeah.
Come on, mate. It's like a scene out of an American movie.
Yeah, there are dead bodies in there.
Jesus Christ, that is cold in there. That is serious. That is seriously cold.
So we do need a bigger freezer.
Yeah.
Bear in mind, we do obviously. I mean, it's okay to say this. We have partners that work with us to make this stuff. This isn't.
Of course, yeah.
We do it in house, but we have people to support us with other components.
Yeah,
so,
on the volume of stuff. Yeah.
There's 3 other businesses we work with across the UK, and they've all got freezers this size and bigger with our materials in.
Yeah.
So this is one of 4.
We've got boxes here, which I guess is rolls. Yeah.
Rolls of material.
And then what are these just here?
So there's the roll of material. That's the heavy stuff. That's the bulking ply that goes on the back of visual components.
That is basically where a bumper starts.
That's 40 metres.
On a roll, it looks like carpet in a freezer.
Yeah.
Then these here.
Then what you got here is pre-cut templates on a plotting machine. So I used to be able to recognise what was what. But for example, there we go. We've got names on it. Here we go. Disco 5 front bumper look.
So what we do, we'll outsource the cutting of basically the roll into the kit.
Yeah, so we hand make a template out of the mould, so we know exactly how we want them to make the pieces. They scan the pieces.
Yeah.
Then for efficiency, cost-wise and time, it gets plotted out onto that roller carbon in all the correct orientation for minimal wastage.
Yeah.
So as an example,
on the computer,
so as an example, cut it by hand, you might have a 35 to 40% waste problem.
Yeah.
On a roll of material by machine, it's nested in a way that sometimes you've got only 5 to 8%.
Oh right, cool.
And when you're spending what we spend on material,
can we leave this now, because literally it's so cold in here? What is it, minus
freezing, whatever freezing is. I think it's
We've
minus.
got to go to lamination. It's warmer in there. So obviously with the new Vogue imminently coming out, I just said to Chris, we're still actually doing quite a lot of old Vogue, so people still do the conversions. I'm just going to leave this to you to explain because I don't know how to explain it. We're actually going to see.
I mean, you know what? If you basically carry on doing what you're paid to be doing.
Yeah. And you're going to narrate.
Yeah, I'll narrate. Why not? So on the Bow Diffuser, there's 2 plies of material that go down. You've got your initial surface ply, which is the visual part, which everyone sees, everyone gets excited
So
about.
that will be the part that goes up. So
that's
this
going direct to the mould
smooth
surface.
finish of the mould is going on there. So that's the visual part that we'll see there, yeah?
Yeah. Obviously it goes down in pieces because the parts we now make are obviously quite complex. So to capture all the detail, you need to template it and lay it up as we're doing here. So that's the first ply. But if you just made it out of one ply, it wouldn't be strong enough, it wouldn't be rigid enough.
So one goes on top of the other?
Yeah, so you've got to bulk it up and then overlay
And how do you know what level of ply to use and how many of each ply?
That's down to R&D, isn't it? Yeah. At the end of the day, it forms part of it. So obviously you get a feel for one diffuser is very similar to the next, so you know that 2 plies in the main areas is okay. But then again, the geometry of the part helps stiffen it.
So when you've got particular angles,
so with these ribs that you've got in there and fixing points,
reduces flex in the part,
or where our billet finisher goes in there, that as you know weighs quite a chunk. We then end up putting lots of strips of material there
to give it the weight to hold the whole. So basically, what we do there, guys, is when we put the billet exhaust finisher in on the exhaust tip, there's extra material here to thicken it up. So when we bolt it in, it doesn't flex or hang down, or obviously come off the car when someone's driving.
Yeah. So that's the initial laminating process, which I'm going so quick over this. I mean, that's probably going to take 8 to 10 hours to make.
Wow. So and that's just the lamination part. So
yeah.
So you get a break in between?
No, because I'm stood here. so that's that side.
We're working people to the bone for 8 hours on a diffuser.
Let me just look at your fingers. Is there bone? So that's that side of it. Then I can talk you through what we then do for the next stage of the curing process, because that's one of many, many stages.
So just while we're here, if we go along to the next bay, because we've actually got a full bump here, so people don't actually realise what we do when we're making a bumper, and it's, you know, the size of this, and these bumpers, we'll show you the stock upstairs, we've got hundreds of them upstairs. Same process? Same
process, slightly different. This isn't a visual component, so it's a bit more forgiving. It's a slightly different material and resin makeup. So you can get away with a lot more because we're going to prep, prime it and colour paint.
So what's the difference here in the large weave carbon at the side to this? What's the reasoning behind using 2 different ones?
This is a system that basically has a lot more fillers in it. Yeah. So, and because it's a non-visual part, it's the way it's made up.
Yeah.
I suppose you want rigidity, you want strength, you want lightweight, and it's just getting all of that balance of everything right. And if you look in here...
Yeah, this brings back some memories.
Yeah, we've got a reason why we do that.
That's right, with the R&D process, obviously, on most modern cars, they have blind spot monitoring. So we went through the pain of blind spot monitoring, always failing, and just here, basically what we do, am I right, and we put fiberglass in here?
E-glass, which is a pre-preg version of...
So it gives you a little window, so basically when the blind spot monitors are mounted in, they can still see through the glass, correct?
Correct. Which we found that blind spot monitoring doesn't like carbon, so it can't see through it. It bounces back on itself and it just isn't happy. So that's why they're there, but by the time you've painted it Estral blue, Santorini black,
you can't see it.
Doesn't matter, and because that's all going onto the mould surface, you think, oh, but there's going to be an unsightly patch. What about the ridge or a lip? But it's on a mould surface, so it all blends into one as it goes through the process, and then it's seamless, basically. Again, another day job to make this.
So a similar amount of time to make a diffuser as a bumper?
Yeah. You've got the scale of it, and obviously you're approaching it differently, more meticulous with that visual diffuser.
Because of the visual element, you have to get it right,
and obviously there's that scrap rate included in that, which for us is very, very low. And then equally with this, it's about the sheer scale of the job and getting the material in, again, plying up with reinforcements in areas where fixing points are.
So on something like this, what can cause a mistake?
To be fair with this, because of where you've got these bolt-on returns and it's a lot more complicated.
Yeah.
When we go through the next process of putting into a vacuum bag, it's generally there where the mistake can occur.
So what's that? Is that when a bag bursts in the oven and stuff like that? Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, so we'll talk through that, and that's the major catastrophe. But these can be more salvageable if a vacuum bag bursts because it's not visual. Whereas that is,
it's all over.
Full of pinholes, and it could just be a drama for the paint shop.
That's the templates, isn't it?
They're some of the pieces that are made up of the templates, from the templates. Sorry. Yeah. Cool. And there's probably like 70, 80 pieces that go into this.
Just in one bumper.
Yeah. This is like 15 years of like experience in 15 minutes. This is like, this is your life in composites. And I'm not going to cry at the end.
So when I said at the beginning that I'm kind of the sales a little bit technical, this is the technical, no sales or a little bit of salesability. But basically we're putting him under pressure because he doesn't want to mess up and say something that he's forgot over the last 15 years of experience. Yeah. So we are now in the bagging room. Yeah, so I'm getting it right. So we're in the bagging room, and I actually don't know what the difference is between this bench and these benches.
So this is quite a recent addition. This is forever evolving. This facility. Once we've laminated materials into the moulds from the pre-cut kits, it comes into the bagging room. This is a big central bench that we use for all the big jobs and small jobs. And we use generic roll of material, which is the vacuum bag itself, different widths, depending on the size of job. So the mould needs to go into a vacuum. It goes inside there, and you have to make a fresh bag every time for every job.
And so that's waste every time, yeah?
However, back in the barn and in the early days, because I couldn't afford to buy rolls like this, we'd actually reuse it, which was like a big no-no. But you get away with it, and it'd save you X amount on each job. Anyway, a bit like putting
we don't do that anymore.
We don't do it anymore.
For the purposes of this video, guys, we do not reuse bags.
No. Well, Tesco's ones you do because it's on.
Because you're recycling.
So the reason why it has to go in a bag is because when this mould with pre-preg material goes into the autoclave, which I'll talk you through in a second, which is a big oven, big pressurised oven. The other materials that go around the mould, which is the breather and the release material, it needs to consolidate because you've got your thin ply, you've got your thicker bulking ply. When you've got vacuum pushing and holding that material in place, and then it goes inside the pressure vessel, it's basically consolidating that material and getting all the detail.
So what's just here then? Is this like pre-taking the air out? Is it just simply taking the air out? There's no pressure here, is there?
This is just so that, a bit like when you go on holiday or you vacuum down your clothes sort of thing, and you'd put it in a briefcase to save in a suitcase to save room. So I can.
So I'm guessing here we've got a G-Wagon front grille.
So and the reason why we've got all the carpet everywhere is not just to be fuzzy and homely, but you don't want this material to catch or pop.
So if there's one small pinhole in this, that's it. That's the vacuum pressure over.
Yeah, because what will happen, by losing the vacuum in there, it just unsettles everything to the point where the surface finish will be affected, as will the integrity of the part. So it has to be under vacuum.
So here we've got basically in the back, you can see here, we've got our laminated carbon on the back there.
Yeah, so this is the mould upside down.
And if the pressure is pushing this towards it, and the valve will basically take all of the pressure.
Yeah, so when it goes in the autoclave, it will be connected to a vacuum system still, and the atmospheric pressure inside the vessel is also pushing that bag into the back of the material to go through the 2.5 hour cure cycle when it starts to see some temperature of about 110, 115 degrees. And then the resin will start to flow. Kind of just like making a cake in that sense, and then it all just comes to a flash point and it happens.
So I'm guessing the pressure pushes the car into all of the detail. So that's why on the front face that we get of our parts, you see all of that detail.
You capture it all, And one thing to point out, as much as there's this process that obviously captures this and deals with it, like when we were in the clean room earlier, I'm trying to put into words how highly skilled these guys are. It's not just about, it's a template, it's cut, you slap it in. they have to be so pedantic and they know exactly how much time to spend working this material in. But if you work it too much, you get a distortion, you get a stocky bit.
So basically, what distortion is, guys, is where you've got this perfect crisscross weave in the carbon, and if you push it, I guess it basically opens up.
Just sort of spread the toes, and then it's like, oh God, it's all over.
Part ruined.
Of course, you don't get to see that until we complete this process. You pull it out of the mould, want to puff your chest out, and then you don't. Because
so in short, you basically have to cut apart, make apart, break apart, and then you don't realise that you've broken apart until you've made it fully, basically.
To the very, very end. So they are very, very skilled. Everyone is throughout this entire process.
So where do we go with this next?
So this now goes into the autoclave because this is what these shelving systems are in here for. Jobs that are autoclave ready to go through a cure cycle, which I can now talk you through next room along.
So the autoclave. Tell me about this, mate.
This was another silly mistake, actually.
Why?
This was in the early days when you got on board.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have an autoclave big enough to make parts for you.
So this is the first clave
that we own.
Yeah, when we merged. Yeah. So how big was your one before then?
Actually, you could just about fit in it.
So when we first started, one thing to point out, as Streamline Carbon, Chris supplied Urban Automotive with most of the smaller parts.
Yeah.
And we was having trouble making our bumpers. The company we were using were just like, they weren't getting it right. There was some real problems with detail, trim, fit, and all the rest of it. And you didn't want to take the work on to start off with, did you?
No, I was
you
like,
looked at the size of the bumper and said, absolutely not, no way, I can't do those. But then you saw the pain that I was going through, didn't you?
I was conscious of the pressure, the pain.
Yeah, so it wasn't working. We'd just come out with this new like V2 program for the Sport, which is probably our most popular program to date, and it was just going wrong. And you just looked here and said, I can't have this anymore.
Yeah.
And you just did it.
Yeah, we got on board.
And this is obviously what we got.
This was this is what we needed for me to be able to say I can help and I want to get involved.
So what was the plan? Was you going to borrow someone's or?
Yeah, things I've done in the past, you make big jobs, you have to go and use someone else's autoclave,
right,
you transport in a van, but the volumes that were needed by Urban even then, I couldn't have done it that way.
Couldn't have gone backwards and forwards,
So yeah, this was bought for £30,000 way back when.
£30,000 back in the day. What would something like this cost new now?
I mean, 150, 200 grand.
Wow. Please don't break.
No, that's right. And she is old. She's like 1970s. But these sorts of things are like when you go into a machine shop and the guy is as old as the machine next to him.
So just to get this right, we make our parts in a 40-year-old machine.
I thought you were going to say in a Ford Cortina.
No, a 40-year-old machine.
It's 50 years old, isn't it?
Is it really?
Yeah,
wow.
Which means you're nearly 50.
Yeah, I'm nearly 50, guys. 46, I've got 4 years to go. So the valves in here look the same as in there. So
this is all plumbed into the same system.
Between this and the air in there then?
So it's all off the same vacuum system that runs around the facility.
Oh, is it? So it runs the same?
Yeah. But we're just transferring it from in there into here, so it stays under vacuum. We've got a bumper loaded up, some odds and ends in here, G-Wagon vent, which we were talking about earlier. So we're good to go. So when we shut this up, there's heating elements inside, which you can see under here.
Yeah.
And you've got a fan at the back, so it circulates the air in the right way. You've got devices like this, which is a thermocouple to keep an eye on the temperature of the component.
Yeah. And is there any like warning signs or telltale signs where you know something might be going wrong?
Yeah,
or something
completely.
Like that?
So when we lock this door up and then we fill this with air.
Yeah.
So relate it to air in your tyre. We'll run this to say 70 to 90 psi. Yeah. So this is effectively double, nearly triple the amount of air in your road tyre. And when you do that, that's going to put this bag under strain.
Yeah.
So straight away, before you get into the cycle itself, if you start having alarms going off, leaks, etc., you've got to open it back up, you've got to pull the job out, you've got to fix the leak. Worst case, you've got to rebag it. It can take an hour and a half to bag the job.
So is there any times where it goes wrong, like halfway through a cycle? Like,
you know what? Early on, it did.
Yeah.
And again, going back to the skill of the guys that we employ, that are part of everything, it's down to that. So someone might say, oh, the laminator is the key part of it. He is, but also...
But if it doesn't get bagged right...
Yeah, which is why you make sure
Yeah.
the guy that laminates the job bags his own job.
So we might have circa 15 to 20,000 pounds worth of parts in an autoclave at
Yeah.
once, and if the cycle goes wrong in the middle, it's all over on those
Yeah,
parts. You
well-
can't. Can you recover?
Not when it goes wrong.
Yeah, when it goes wrong. So
Yeah.
you know what? I know we have to talk about the win. We talk about the wins because they're cool, but we also have to talk about the L's. The L's are the losses. It's not a loss yet, is it?
This is a going concern loss.
It's a going concern. So we bought this. What do I call it? The Titanic or whatever it is. We
Yeah.
bought this because it seemed like a bargain at the time. It was only 25,000 versus 30,000, and we've never used it, have we?
No, still getting it up and running.
Yeah. It's big and it's blue. Maybe it's because it's not orange. You need to
Well,
paint
yeah,
it orange
I know,
first.
yeah.
So orange, just for everyone that don't know, orange used to be the colours of Streamline before we merged, and obviously still along.
Yeah. The actual idea of that was to run bumpers. So
Yeah.
do bumpers in that, and then just do visual parts in that.
With this, obviously you got a long tray. Would you get a long tray? Would it come right
well,
out? You put
it's
two bumpers.
It's
on?
actually being made.
What?
This is in genuine process.
Yeah, whatever. Watch this space, guys, because I don't think this will ever get commissioned. See, now I've done it on camera, he's got no choice but to do it.
And you know I like a challenge.
Yeah. So, where are we now?
So this is the breakout area where the moulds come when the components have been cured, and we've got to get the glory out of this and take the parts out of the mould.
Yeah.
So
this is the point where we know whether it's good or bad as well. yeah?
absolutely. So all the materials we've talked through, they get taken off and they go in the bin, and then we go through the process that Thomas is going to do here.
And this is
I think this is an RS6. Yeah,
RS6 spoiler.
Yeah.
Right. So as you can see, guys, that we're only halfway through the process, and you can see how technical, skilled, laborious it is to just create one component, from the fridge to the lamination room, all the way through bag, clave. Now we're breaking out, and we've still got trimming to go. So what is Thomas taking off now? What is this material? Because we didn't see, because we saw lamination and bag, we didn't see what this material was. So what's the reason that the red's on there?
So you've got the release film that goes around it. So that's going to encapsulate the resin that kind of leaks out from the part.
Right, gotcha.
And then over the top of that, which was the white breather material, is exactly what it is. It's so it can breathe and let volatiles and air out. So, and it helps with the surface finish of the component.
So this is what you meant earlier about the additional material.
Yeah.
So when the wedge goes in there to break it off.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a lot quicker than 3 minutes.
I won't need to speed that up.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, so we thought we was going to have to speed that up because it was a longer process, but Thomas has got that out nice and neat. You can see, nice smooth edge.
So what do you notice about that? So we were getting excited.
Yeah.
That's the underneath of the spoiler.
Yeah.
So that's one of two parts. So
yeah, so
that's how it sits on the car.
That sits on the car.
And we make a second piece.
But you can see here where that's all trimmed. That will be the underside of the spoiler. This is our
bonding area.
Bonding area to go onto the roof.
And then.
But this will all be trimmed off, and then the top half will be assembled, which we'll show you now.
Yeah.
Right. So this is basically the part that you've just seen that Thomas has just broken out. And you've got the opposite side. So if we put these two together, you can see here, with the exception of all of the edges that have got to be trimmed off in the trim room, that's how the spoiler goes together. So you can see a bit the underside and the upside of the spoiler.
So this is all trimmed off by hand and then mated together and like bedded together. Then adhesives applied, set into a bonding jig.
And then what do we do? Flash off the...
And then, yeah, you'll have a little bit of glue come out, you clean it off, and then obviously it leaves this building to go into the body shop.
So one thing to point out here, you can see that when we make the spoiler, this is what's known as herringbone, yeah?
Yeah.
So a little bit more skilled than normal. If you lay up a normal spoiler, it'll have the weave in one direction, but to make this, you know, sit on the car with a nice finish, we'll basically lay up two pieces of carbon in a V shape And that's called herringbone. It just looks a lot nicer when you've got that and the splitter on the front of the car running through the middle.
And that will obviously match and run top to bottom.
So we even do it on the underside as well.
So equally, it's another added skill to these guys. When they've got materials that are upside down, going into moulds.
The wrong way, to make them
And so
right.
someone may well do that at one point, which is why you then...
got to be remembering, haven't you?
Which is why you kit cut it, so then it's a little bit like going by numbers. You put this piece down first, then that one.
Yeah.
But there's still skill to it. Yeah, so that's that.
Cool. Right, so you can hear in here, it's like really loud. We're not going to go in here, but Alex is going to take some shots of the trim room. This is basically where all of the bumpers are trimmed up, filed down, like the flash taken off.
Yeah, again, very, very accurate, because all of those hours have just been put into
so
those
you trimmed
parts.
something wrong all over again.
Yeah, and what you'll then capture now is, it looks a bit aggressive, but they do it day in, day out.
And they know exactly how much.
where to do it to.
So it just seems like, as you go around this journey, there's so many places that we can mess up.
Where we can trip up, yeah.
So we'll get some footage now and see how detailed the trimming room is. Right, so because Dylan doesn't want to explain,
yeah, I'll have to remember how we do it.
go on, explain this.
It looks like something out of like
you know what?
Sword, doesn't it?
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
Can we take this and do something to Lenny?
Yeah. So, right. So I'll tell you what. I'm going to explain it, and you're going to tell me whether I've got it wrong or right. Okay. Yeah. So I'm guessing one part goes in the top and one part goes in the bottom, and then do we use this as a clamping?
Like to give it even pressure across the component.
Right. So that will slot into there. Yeah.
Yeah. We just took ages to get that out, didn't we?
Yeah.
That's it.
So that will slot into there, and then the parts are. The adhesive's put on and it's squeezed together, and then these clamps go down. Am I right, Dylan?
Yeah, all the way around.
Would I get a job?
Yeah. don't encourage him.
Yeah, so this is cool.
Yeah.
I've never done this before.
It's therapeutic.
I'm learning, guys.
So there's a reason why we need to
do all of these now,
do
by the way.
them all.
That's it,
Right,
complete.
okay. So the reason... No, you wouldn't get a job. You just
I missed one at the last minute.
Right, so the reason why we do this, because we've done it without before, especially going way back.
Well, I know what happens. We go to put a spoiler on, and it's got a little bit of flex in it. So what happens is, because the carbon's so rigid, we go to put it on the car, and there's a little bit of lift, and you have to bond it down. And it's always fighting with itself to get away from the car.
And it's so strong once it's in that geometry, in that shape, that you can't battle it.
So to make this, is this part of, is it like
This
the mould?
is, we've basically just made more moulds off of that pattern.
Yeah.
And then adapted it. So we've cut a hole out underneath. We've obviously trimmed this plate down.
Yeah.
We've bolted these on so that we've got that excess ability to have the clamps on the side.
So again, with this process, we're obviously identifying where we can make mistakes. Is there anything that can go wrong in this process, or is this quite a safe process?
Yeah, this is quite safe, which is it's safeguarding the process by doing it this way.
This way, rather than messing it up.
Rather than doing it loose on the bench with bits of flash tape and just trying to put it there and it'll just go.
What, and like strapping it up sort of thing,
Yeah, so this is the right way to do it. We do it with all our spoilers.
With all of our spoilers now. Is there anything else that we use this process for?
Well, we use it for the G-Wagon bonnet, which is out there.
Because it's so big. And the same thing would happen if you got it one end, it would rock in the middle.
Yeah, because you're making two pieces, because of the nature of the design, we have to bond a B surface part on.
So what we'll do, we've followed this process through on the RS6 spoiler. So in the latter part of the episode, or in the next episode, we'll show you this as a finished piece going into the body shop, so you can see the gloss on the herringbone. And you can see exactly how it fits for the car as well. So while we are here, I mean, so this shows you the complexities of some part. This is obviously a Euro spoiler where, what do you call it? It's a pylon?
A support pylon. We call it a wedge, it's a pylon.
Yeah, so this basically supports in the middle of the roof. The roof goes here. We make this component separately, but this is a prime example of something that we've made in that way and bonded together. We've got a jig for this, yeah?
That's right. And now the reason why we make these in pieces and then assemble it is because it takes the risk out of it. So if you try to make this in one big glorious mould where you've got lots of depth and shape to get
So
into.
the sharp edges would...
Yeah, and also you think about the vacuum bag and the risk of that.
So prone to messing up, getting pinholes,
Whereas
distortion, things like that,
if you make this part nice,
Yeah.
but that has a flaw in it,
Yeah.
then you say, right, okay, this bit
Goes in
the bin, so to
yeah,
speak.
yeah.
we'll just make that one piece again.
So then you
So
won't
you
have to
just-
make the whole component
Yeah.
again. Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah.
So one thing that we've got here that we'll give you a sneak peek on. This is beautiful. This is the Rolls-Royce Cullinan upper rear wing. So when it goes on the car, you've got the roof line running along here. So this runs perfectly parallel with the roof line. And you've actually got a built-in
We learned.
Yeah,
We learned.
yeah. So rather than putting a slot in one, we've got a built-in one. As you can see, it's got a bonding surface here. This will bond on the inner part of the car. And then you can see from the back, that's what it's going to look like on the car.
And this being one of the first prototype is not a visual component, so the weave orientation doesn't matter.
Yeah, so this
did
is just our test fit part.
Yeah.
So you can see here where the weave, obviously this would normally, we're going to do this herringbone,
Be
aren't
one
we?
way or the other, or
Yeah,
herringbone,
yeah.
yeah.
So it'll be angled or herringbone, but this is just so we can see whether the part itself fits on the car.
The other thing to note about that direction of weave not being important is it actually is important from a structural perspective, because if you lay everything up and it's all going the same way,
Yeah.
that can encourage twist. So you need to balance the weave
Yeah.
so that you do exactly that and you try to combat the twist.
Gotcha. So I think that probably just leaves us to show you a couple of things. We want to show you our first ever mould, and also the sheer level of inventory we've got here. We have got tons of it. Come and look at this. Right, so this is basically when we used an AC Schnitzer front bumper on our first Sport. Obviously, we was using someone else's components, and we wanted to dress it up, didn't we? We wanted to basically make it into our own. So this is the splitter that we basically made out of wood in the beginning, and you can see. I mean, it almost looks like it's ready to die.
Yeah, she's still got life left in her. So this is using an old school method. We're not using machine patterns. We're not using carbon tooling or moulds. We're using fiberglass and a resin system, which is what this is made up of.
But is it still as strong? Is it?
It's the integrity's there for up to a certain temperature and certain pressure. Because what you find is when it goes in the autoclave at 80, 90 psi, where this has been laid up with a brush and roller and resin, if it finds air pockets, the pressure in the clave will do that and find it, and then that will transfer to the component that you've made, and you get lumps and bumps.
Yeah, right.
Because if that has a divot and that's being pushed in, and that's then got
you're
a female,
going to get that undulation in your part, basically.
And then you've got all these pimples over it, but you just put it back through, you repair it, so on and so forth. So yeah, I think we made probably, I don't know, 50, 60 components
60,
out of it.
Yeah, we did quite
Made
a lot.
them way too cheap back then.
Yeah. So you can see here, let me just pop this down. So you can see, right, so you can see here the sheer level of inventory that we've got. These are RS6 side seals, left and right. What have we got here, 50 sets?
Probably not as many as you think. It's probably about 25.
25 sets.
Yeah.
If we take this out very, very slowly.
Yeah, this is where it's dangerous before it's been trimmed.
So, what do you call this once? It's hand safe, isn't it?
Yeah. So this is as it's come off or out of the mould. So at the moment you've still got very sharp edges.
You have to be really, really careful.
Yeah.
But once that's made hand safe and then it goes into the trim, you can see here the little witness lines for the trimmer to basically make the holes for where we fit it on. So all of this is put into the mould to give you that.
Yeah, the important thing is to capture all of that detail before it goes through the body shop process. It's lacquered. You don't want to be drilling into something that's painted.
That's right. So yeah, I mean, I guess if you drill into something that's lacquered, you break that lacquer, you break that seal on the carbon. Yeah.
There we go.
So down, what have we got? Splitters, RS6.
Light bars.
We've got bumpers here racked up for SVR and Range Rover Sport. What we've got 30, 40 bumpers here. We've got Vogue. We've got G-Wagon in the corner.
Got Bentayga over there, Bentley GT.
Bentley GT, Bentayga. We've got, where's all the transporter bumpers?
Well, they're being machined, and we've also got them next door.
Right, gotcha.
In another unit.
So yeah, as you can see, we've stacked this up, but this doesn't represent finished stock. We're doing a bit of a mission before we close up for Christmas, where the trim shop in particular, all hands on deck, and they're motivated to trim all of these raw components in stock. So then we're going to try and get these trimmed.
It's next stage on. So it's actually closer to being a finished part.
It's all well and good us having all of this stock, you know, because it's great to have it made, but until it's trimmed, we can't finish it and put it on a car, can we?
No.
And would you say trim's our bottleneck?
At the moment it is, so literally send your CVs in.
Yeah, so we need some trimmers. If you're a composite trimmer, get in touch with us, because you can see the level of components we've got to trim.
Yeah.
While we're here, what's that? I don't recognise that.
That's a blast from the past. That's for a Lotus Elise. It's a removable roof. So there's an inner panel.
Really?
There's an inner panel, which is obviously a bit of a soft top, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's an inner panel that goes in, and that's the visual part. So they did do a factory part, then we do that for an aftermarket company. And I sometimes get asked why we still do it. I like to just support those people that were there in the beginning.
Yeah, gotcha.
Than just
so this is one of the heritage parts from before we joined together.
Yeah.
You did things like this. Yeah. What was it? Renault Clio, 206,
Peugeot,
Focus,
Citroen,
RS,
Renault, Ford,
did a lot
that
of Ford
stuff.
work in the beginning. Yeah. These are, you know what? I'd actually love to pick up and do a lot more of this, but you can see the level that we're already swamped with our own stuff without taking more work on like that.
Yeah.
Right, so I think that wraps everything up. That shows you that the core part of carbon manufacturing. We've got obviously from the fridge all the way to trimming. Next week we will show you the raw parts going over and being prepped and finished, making them look pretty for the car. I've got one more thing to show you before we cut off to today, which is the RS4 kit. We just had the molds come through from the manufacturer. So we'll do that now, and then we'll see you next week. Chris, I think this is probably something that we want to show the guys. So you can see how detailed this is. If you can hold from one side, this is
the Vogue.
This is a Vogue front grille.
Pre-facelift.
Yeah, pre-facelift. So the intricacy in laying up on this.
Just to make the mould. This was a mission, because you've got all this little detail that creates the post. So that's obviously a female. Yeah. So that then creates your male post.
Your male post in between, which stops it flapping about in the wind.
Yeah, to have that rigidity.
So to have this laid up, and then what we would do, we would use the rear surface from the plastics to bond it to this, so you get an OEM fit to the front face of carbon. This just shows you, the skill that our guys go to.
Yeah.
It's not just cut it out of carbon, throw it on. It's the level we go to is so detailed.
Yeah.
So this is the last thing that we've got to show you on today's video. This is our new RS4 kit. Pretty similar design to the RS6, side seals, front lip, rear spoiler, upper and lower. And you can see here the level of detail that's in the parts compared to that old relic component that we did before.
Oh yeah, I'd never have agreed to do this back then. I would have said, no, it's going to be a nightmare.
Yeah, I mean, the detail in here, I mean, particularly, we've got one component, the devil, isn't it, which is the Urus front splitter.
Yeah.
The Urus front splitter is so complex, I think the guy needs a headlight, doesn't he? Yeah.
Literally
he needs a headlight to see into the mould to make sure it doesn't go wrong. What's our wastage like on that?
It used to be not good in the early days.
Yeah.
But as the people you leave on it, they get to grips with it, and you get the right people on it. And you know what? This day and age now, every 10 we do, we might get one that had a bit of a failure in it.
Yeah, so it's a good rate, 10%. So.
Yeah.
So I think that wraps it up for today, guys. We'll see you next week with more detail on the finishing of the manufacturing process. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe.